Hello. And happy Thursday. Welcome to Spiritual Matters Thursday here at the Daily Huddle. I am your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and I'm so excited that you are here. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. This almost never happens. I usually have to I depend on you guys to lift me up on Thursday mornings. And this time I came guns a-blazing. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm going to have to match the energy of what we're about to talk about, because we're about to talk about how do you triumph over a dark night of the soul. Some of you have heard of that term. We're going to get into that a little bit, and have a quote for you that speaks to the dark night of the soul. And it comes from Vanessa Ooms. She wrote a book called Do It For You, How to Stop People Pleasing and Find Peace. And her quote is, sometimes good people, life will tear your house apart so that you can see and fix the cracks on the foundation. So welcome to your Daily Huddle.
Really? You're gonna leave us like that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do the quote again?
Sometimes life will tear your house apart so that you can see and fix the cracks in the foundation.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Breathe that in, people. Breathe that in. That good ass prana, like my friend says. I want to thank you for being here once again, and I want to get us grounded into this conversation. I'm going to tell you from the beginning, I always say at the end, audit your assumptions. I'm operating from the assumption that a dark night of the soul doesn't feel like a blessing when you're going through it, but it does at the end. And so we're going to assume it's a blessing and not assume it's like an unnecessary or necessary evil of life. So before we do that though, let's get us grounded into this now moment. So I want to ask Gio, where are you and what time is it?
I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to be there, but I am here. I'm really here. It's the only place. And what time is it? It's now.
It is now. It is now. The only moment where you can be. Absolutely. Rashida, how are you and who are you hugging today?
Hey, good morning, my family Daily Huddle. Oh, I am so relaxed and stressed and loving where I'm at. And who I'm going to hug today? I'm going to hug my boyfriend. I'm going to hug my dog, and I'm going to hug myself. Oh,
okay.
It's so
Hugs
good.
all around. Hugs all around. Who else? You get a hug, and you get a hug, and you get a hug.
Everybody get a hug. It's going to be a hug in the hour, and I'm going to hug my daughter that she just turned 39 years today.
Wow.
So I'm going to hug. She love.
Oh, so sweet. So sweet. We never stop being mothers, don't we? I love that. Well, thank you again for being here, you guys. This is a near and dear topic for me, because if you remember the movie What Dreams May Come, do you remember that movie? Did you ever see it? Put a 1 in the chat if you saw What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Rest his soul. The whole premise of this story is that through a series of painful, heartbreaking events, eventually the mother, the wife in that story, ends up, I'm not gonna tell you how if you didn't see it, but she ends up like in limbo. She dies and she ends up in limbo. And her husband, played by Robin Williams, is like, I gotta go get her. And so he goes from wherever he's at. I'm not gonna tell you that either. If you haven't seen it, I don't wanna ruin it. He goes from wherever he's at to go meet her at the darkest aspect of her soul, to bring her back from that darkness. I think it's the most amazing kind of like love story, right? But it brings out a very specific desire that we all have. And that is that at our most unlovable, at our least hopeful, that is when we most need love and when we most desire help. And the dark night of the soul, I'm defining it as that pit in your life when you're like, where are my answers? Why am I going through this? What the heck is going on? I thought I did everything right. I thought I was a good person, as though performing good personhood would get you some treats, like an easy life or smooth life, et cetera, et cetera. I remember having a conversation with Gio that I was like, oh, you have it like suffering is a glitch in the matrix. Like it's not supposed to happen. And he was like, wait, what? You mean it is supposed to happen? Like what kind of world do we live in, right? And so I want to invite you to the possibility that we live in a reality of duality. Write that down. We live in a reality of duality. And that's not the only reality we live in, but that's another sermon for another Sunday. But in the reality of duality, contrast is a teaching tool. Contrast is an invitation to revolution. Contrast is an opportunity to audit your assumptions and to make choices out of awareness and not out of reaction. What do I mean by that? When you see, for example, out there, or maybe in your family, or maybe in your friendship circle or whatever, when you see something you don't agree with, whether it be violence or lies or pettiness or whatever, insert here, fill in the blank, whatever it is that you don't agree with, you have a choice whether to give in to that energy or to stand in contrast of it. You choose to either give into it or to say, no, that I'm not doing that. I'm doing this other thing. I'm choosing the higher road, or I'm choosing not to lie, or I'm choosing not to be violent, or I'm choosing not to be petty, etc. And listen to me. Sometimes I do not make that choice. Sometimes I buy a first-class ticket in the petty train. Okay, God ain't through with me yet. But when you realize that you're making those choices, the awareness gives you the opportunity to make a different choice. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Choice comes from awareness. And so this dark night of the soul is a little bit like we're taking out everything out there. We're making everything dark out there. It's not even a dark night of the soul. It's a dark night of your circumstances, really. But you're making everything dark out there so that you can focus on the light within, so that you can explore your own resilience, your own trust, your own faith, your own ingenuity, your own ability to create or foster or lean on your relationships, your self-trust, your ability to communicate the state of your heart, etc. And so how do you triumph over a dark night of the soul? I'm going to say, start with asking why, but not a why, like why me, like, you know, like it's not supposed to happen, so therefore why me? More like, why is this here? Like curiosity, why is this here? What am I supposed to get out of this? What is there to get out of this? Because sometimes when you're going through something, it looks like this is just pain for no effing reason. This is just tragedy with no justifiable cause. Like, what the heck? God, I need to see your manager, okay? Because you're not on the job right now, right? And so it gives you an ability when you operate from curiosity, when you start that inquiry, it allows you to see, if not understand or agree, but at least to see what treasure could there be here for you? What are you now bigger than that you weren't before? What are you now capable of that you weren't before? I'll give you an example. You guys have heard me mention my sister, her husband of however many years, I forget how long they were married, but for the last 6 years of his life, she was his primary caretaker. He contracted ALS and eventually died from that disease. And his decline was heartbreaking for all of us in the family to see. We love Mustafa. Love Mustafa. We loved how he loved my sister. We loved his zest for life. He was a young guy. He died shy of his 46th birthday. And when we were going through that and the unending like humiliations and things that he could no longer do, and you know, first he could only feed himself and then he had to be fed, and then like just the decline. It was like, really, God? In a world where Hitler is a possibility and Trump is still walking the earth? That was what I said. Why is this guy getting ALS out of all big people, you know? And then I had to kind of sit with it like, oh, you have it like getting a disease, especially one that costs you your life, is a punishment, such that it should only happen to bad people. Again, auditing my assumptions, right? Oh, you assume that bad things only happen to bad people. Oh, you assume that bad things are only bad things, that there's no good and bad. Oh, you assume that if you can't fix it, there ought to be some kind of extra terrestrial, spiritual, otherworldly help to interrupt this tragedy. Like it's not supposed to happen. Oh, you have it like you can't take it. Oh, you have it like this is beyond you. Like you're not capable of living in great pain, but also being in great help and of great love and in great compassion. Because I don't know that I would ever have had the compassion that I had for my brother-in-law. I call him brother-in-love. Had he not been so ill or helpless or like literally impaired. And so I'm going to ask you to think about your, any one of your dark night of the soul. I think by the time that we get to our 30s and 40s and 50s, we've had more than one. The times when you felt like, I have no answers. I don't want no answers. At this point, I need to see God's manager. This is some bullshit. Like that. Like the dark night of the soul that has you question reality, question your faith, question even your own fortitude to deal with life, right? I want you to think about one of those moments. If you really get with it, something will come to mind almost immediately. And I want you to think, because given that you're here, you've gotten through it. Or if you're still in it, you're getting through it, right? And I want you to think, how am I a better version of myself today, having gone through that I didn't see possible at the beginning of that? And it can be really basic things. Like I did not know that I could stay up 3 days in a row with no sleep and still be functional and still make my nephew's breakfast and still take my sister to the airport and still take Mustafa to the hospital. And I didn't know that I had it in me. I thought I was gonna pass out. I didn't know I had it. Or I didn't know that I could just sit with someone in grief and not try to fix it. Just be there for them. Resist the temptation to be a problem solver. Didn't know I had that in me. Or I didn't know that I could cry for 4 days in a row from anticipatory grief. He was still here and I was crying like I already lost him. So there are some things that are available in your emotional capacity, in your spiritual faith or trust, in your relationships for compassion, for teamwork, for resilience, for ingenuity, for resourcefulness, etc., that are available now because you went through that dark night of the soul that were not a possibility before it. And let's talk about it. Somebody come up on stage and talk to me about how you are a bigger, better, badder, more amazing version than you already were because you went through a particular night of the soul. Yes, sir.
I love how you are creating the context to look at it, the dark night of the soul. I remember distinctively for myself when I had my skydiving accident, and after a few days, it was really clear that what I had built material in the things I had built, like houses and cars and things like that, was going to have an impact given where my business was, and I couldn't walk. For like 6 months or so, and I remember distinctively forcing myself to ask that question because I was so pissed at life at that moment. It was like I was hot. Now I can't work. I'm in bed. I got surgery. And the doctor said, you can't walk for about 6 to 8 months. And I was mad. And, the whole, I'm a good person thought showed up. But then the thought that also showed up for me, and I can't say I created that thought. It just showed up for me. Okay. For me to consider, which was, well, what can you do now that you couldn't do before? Where is life forcing you to listen to something? Why do you need to stop the train that you have created for yourself? Why would you think it's necessary to stop this train? Otherwise, you won't stop it. And I kept on, like, I remember being in my living room all alone, upset, screaming to myself. I was saying this to myself. Imagine this at 9 o'clock at night, alone by yourself, right? I was screaming, God damn it, look. And I kept on screaming to myself because my brain wanted to go in the direction of this shouldn't happen. But I didn't want to go there. And then after a few minutes, what the new thought that showed up was, you can now write your book. You can now do it. And I kind of hold on to that thought for a while. And then that at the same time, the book, Man's Search for Meaning of Viktor was also there available for me. And it just, that moment created the rest of my life. Wow. Where my life is now.
That's powerful. That pause was pivotal.
It was almost spiritual. Like it was necessary. Otherwise, I was not going to stop the train I had built for myself.
Powerful. And now you don't need skydiving accidents to pivot or to or to create pauses in your life. You're like, nope, we're not gonna do that again. We're gonna volunteer for pauses, dagnabbit.
It's exactly how I feel. But it did leave me this thought that that I don't need to know what's best for me. It did leave me that.
Really?
Yeah.
I love hearing that from you specifically, Gio.
There are moves you've never seen before.
Oh, my faith in humanity has been restored. Gio said, I don't need to know. Oh, okay. I love it.
Yeah, that from there, I always have that. When things happen in a particular way in my life, since then, I don't need to know.
Yeah.
If I don't need to know what's good for me. I'm sorry. I don't know what really is good for me. That's the thought that uses me. I don't really know what is good for me.
Right, because some stuff is good for you. You don't know until you hindsight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Good stuff. Oh, that's so powerful. Who else has something to share? Who else?
This is Laura. I can share.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you for this. Yes, I've had many dark nights of the soul, but this one was really a dark night of the soul when my father died. I was 6 years old, living with godparent, foster parent, and was dreaming that somebody hit me. I was crying. And then I was awakened to be told, oh, your father just died.
At
So
6?
At 6, yes.
Oh
So
my
I
goodness.
continued to cry. They took me to the home. They passed my swung me over his dead body, or whatever rituals, that was it was in Jamaica, in the rural area. So I kept screaming, kicking, screaming. I don't know. Am I gonna die too? I don't know what's happening.
Sure.
So that set me on a path of depression. Didn't know what it was, but just total sadness. No one to talk to me. Had no idea what's going on, except that I'm extremely sad. I'm always thinking at church on Sundays, oh, next minute I'm going to hear my mom is dead too. So that set me on a path of leaving the church. I couldn't take that stress anymore. But the path that it has led me to is curiosity. I became a seeker, trying to figure out and understand what did happen. How come I'm dreaming, I'm crying, I'm hurt? To be told my father is dead at the same time, what really, really transpired? So out of that experience, I just kept trying to figure out. As I get older, I started to read books. I was exposed to a mental mind science person at an early age. So I was exposed to these books. I don't even know what I'm reading, but just trying. Until now, I think I've gotten the answer in terms of how thoughts travel and all of that, So that was a positive thing from that experience for me. I'm complete. Thank you.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love the way that you phrased it, because something that can at first begin to be such a tragedy and such a loss. It sounds to me, when you were sharing, the idea of safety, the idea of certainty, when you're so young, it's like, wait, if this person who was like almost God to me, right? That's like invincible and powerful, if daddy can go, then nobody's safe. What else is going to happen? Who's next? Maybe mom, maybe me, And so that sense of safety allowed you to then leverage it to say, okay, well, what else is out there? And that adventure of seeking and being able to ground yourself and get your own center instead of it being dependent on somebody else's existence. That's very powerful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Questions, comments, shares? Sorrel.
Dr. Ogando, I never realized that leaving Haiti was a dark night of the soul experience for me. So much so that I think what I did with it is I just kind of buried it. I'm a big boy. It doesn't matter that I left everything I've ever known behind. Because I was almost an adult. I was 17 going on 18. And so I think today I'm being forced to deal with that. What's it like for me to leave everything I know behind and start all over again? It made me resilient. It made me smart. But somehow I'm discovering now that it also left me like disconnected in this way. I'm not going to latch on too hard, because you never know. I might need to pick up and go. Yeah.
Wow.
So there's this flood of emotion right now where I'm like, gosh, I'm feeling a lot of regret for the life I missed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling a lot of being unsettled. Like, maybe there will be that time where I could go back home
Mm-hmm.
and not need to be here. So the learning and growing continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I share this with you, Sorrel, because I left my country pretty young, Dominican Republic. We're like neighbors, right? Haiti and Dominican Republic share an island. And the last time that I was there was when I was 17, and I haven't been back since. And there's a part of me that feels like you, that's like, there's a whole life. There's like this sliding doors moment where it's like, if I hadn't done this, or if I hadn't done that, if I had made this move or whatever, I could have had this entire life that played out in the Dominican Republic. And it would have been like, then I can be really Dominican, not just a Dominican expat in the United States, right? But then I also think about like stories that people tell me about my country, and it's like, if I go back now, when I go back, whenever I go back, it is not the same country that you left. You have a fantasy in your or wishful or crystallized kind of memory of what it was when you were 6, when you were 8, when you were 10, when you were 17. That is just not there. And when I go back, it'll be to pay homage to that memory, not to interact with the reality that is the country now. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. It does. And in contrast to what you're saying, leaving home and longing for home,
Yeah.
knowing that home is not the way I left it, because I do go back a lot,
Mm-hmm.
has literally given me the life I live.
Mm-hmm.
I live inside of a promise that Haiti is a developed nation in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So I'm now grateful
Yeah.
for that, because I do have a big life. I do have a big and fulfilling life outside of that context.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Ashe, Laura says. Ashe. Rashida, you have something?
Good morning, my daily order family. It's so amazing. Sherelle, Dr. Monikah, thank you so much for sharing. I left Costa Rica with the same, with so much pain that when my 3 girls, my husband and my mom, came to the airport to say farewell to me, it was so painful. At the time, I was 27 years old when I left my country. Just come to stay 3 years to do my college and go back. I still going back. And today I'm still going back. And trust me, the first 3 years of my life living in America, I could not remember the night that I don't cry myself to sleep. But just, and trust me, every year my kids used to come and spend a month with me, but it was not the same. I know that when I said I outroot myself out of Costa Rica, my heart was still beating in Costa Rica. So trust me, it's one of those mixed feelings that I live until today. I was in Costa Rica last year, August. After not being in Costa Rica, I would say it's 15 years, because before that, the first time I went back to Costa Rica is 20 years later. And trust me, when I went back to Costa Rica 20 years later, I was like, what I'm doing here? Because I could not find myself. I didn't know who I was. If I was a Costa Rican, I was American, living at the time I was living in New York. It was just one of mixed feelings. But trust me, after a while working on myself, I found out that as immigrants, we know where we belong. We belong home. And that's how I feel when I go back to Costa Rica. So thank you so much for the topic. I was wanting lead me to strengthen that grid that I have of knowing where I belong. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I'm going to leave you with some homework because that's what I do. Take some time, if either in your journal or a voice memo on your phone or something like that, where you can maybe recount to yourself one of those moments of the dark night of the soul. But here's how I want you to do it. I want you to be 100% in remembrance of whatever that pain was, whatever that sadness was, whatever whatever that pain was. And even though you can feel it completely, that you can recount it as though it was a blessing. That you can speak about it, still be emotionally honest about what it cost you or the pain that you endured, etc. Honor that, be true to that, be authentic to that. But from the position of like awe and gratefulness and almost like surprise, I was like, look at the gift that came wrapped in all of that. Because when you start to see that everything that has happened to you has happened for you, when you really sit in that, the next time that you have another dark night of the soul, you'll be able to welcome it more resilient, more curious, more open, and more bendy, right? More bendy, like you won't crack when it comes, because your agility and your flexibility and your humility allows you to have it pass through you and not pass you, if that makes any sense. In Spanish, yeah, thank you, Ronald. In Spanish, the way that some people translate what's wrong with you is we sometimes say, ¿qué te pasa? Right, Gio? ¿Qué te pasa? And the literal translation of ¿qué te pasa? Is what's passing through you. Not what's wrong with you, but what's passing through you. So this difficulty, this wrongness or whatever, it's not yours. It's not wrong with you. It's passing through you. So if you can see that, if you can dance with it in that way, then you won't be as heartbroken. You won't feel as traumatized. It won't pause you in your tracks like that and render you useless. It will empower you. It'll equip you, and you end up being more fortified for what you've gone through. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I love each and every one of you. I appreciate every one of you. I think when we laugh and cry together, like my daughter used to say when she was little, it goes by faster. And I want you to remember to love generously, to laugh loud, to give of yourself, your time, your attention, your talents. Move, dance. If you're like me, you have to take frequent dance breaks in your day. Stress less, sleep more, eat more plant-based. And of course, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Love you. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
One love, guys. One love. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Sarah, how you having enough fun?